Welcome to the Restoration Pros Unplugged podcast. In each episode, we're going to bring you insightful interviews and discussions with top restoration industry leaders. We're also going to delve into their business, the strategies that made them successful, and most importantly, the valuable lessons they've learned along the way. I'm your host, Clinton James. I'm also the Chief Marketing Officer at Water Restoration Marketing. We're a digital marketing agency dedicated to helping restoration companies nationwide secure more high-value water jobs. Now, this show, it aims to provide you with the knowledge and tools you need to excel in the restoration industry. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
And welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of the Restoration Pros Unplugged podcast. As always, I am your host, Clinton James of Water Restoration Marketing. Today is an awesome episode. Really excited about bringing this young lady to our audience here. I'm joined by Leah Hanlon. Now, Leah wears a few different hats right now. Leah is the, VP of franchise sales for One Tom Plumber. She is also an active business development rep for Icon Property Rescue. And she also helps train all of the business development reps for all the franchisees in One Tom Plumber. In addition to doing all this stuff, she's also responsible for bringing in millions, not a million, millions of dollars in new business for these companies each and every year. So if that wasn't a great intro, I don't know what is, Leah. So welcome to the Restoration Pros Unplugged podcast, Leah.
Thank you so much, Clinton. I'm happy to be here. And that was a fantastic intro. So thank you.
We're happy to have you. So for our audience that's not familiar with One Tom Plumber or not familiar with Icon Property Rescue, these are both very successful. One is a restoration company, been around for decades. The other is a franchise that's been around for 7, 8 years now. That sets up franchises, restoration companies, with a plumbing franchise to help them chase commercial restoration business.
You nailed it.
All right. Before we talk about the businesses, let's talk about Leah. So, Leah, tell us how you actually got into restoration in the first place.
Well, that's not an amazing story by any stretch of the imagination. It was truly just an introduction from a friend who happened to know Rocky, know that he was a great entrepreneur, great business owner. He was looking for a business development rep. She knew I was in the market for something different. I had come from the world of media, advertising, radio and television and outdoor. I wanted something different, but sales was my passion. So anyway, it was just an introduction. I really didn't know anything about the restoration industry before walking into it.
Okay. So you get hired on by Icon. What's the first hat? What's the first role that you wore in the restoration industry?
So it was business development, but my first priority of targets, if you will, was plumbers. So when I was first hired, it was go after plumbers, try to get them to refer you water mitigation jobs.
That is an age-old way to build a restoration business, right? Because a lot of the times when a homeowner or a business owner has some kind of emergency water damage, their initial thought is, hey, I need to get a plumber in here, right?
Yep.
All right, so tell me a little bit about your experience getting out in the field and courting these plumbers to send you referrals.
Yeah, it was good. I didn't love it. I'll be perfectly honest. It was, I quickly transitioned out of that and I can talk about that in a second. But, that was a hard business to go after because everybody in the restoration space was also paying plumbers to refer business. And so it really became very competitive on who's going to pay the most money to the plumber. So there didn't seem to be a lot of loyalty there. And I felt like the plumbers didn't really care about the customer enough to make sure they referred him to the best restoration company. So, it just kind of gave me a feeling. I didn't love it.
I get it. It's an ick. And I work with restoration companies in some of the biggest markets in the country. And these guys have been doing this for 30, 40 years, right? And they remember a time when you had a relationship with a plumber and that plumber would refer business to you and you would refer business to that plumber. There was no
Yeah.
monetary exchange, right?
Right.
And now it's a more competitive landscape, and these plumbers are being offered 500, 1,000, $1,500 for these water damage referrals, and restoration companies are willing to pay them. So
Yeah.
it's definitely a different landscape there. And you're right. In these really competitive markets, like where you guys are at in Ohio, there's not a lot of loyalty to go around.
No, there really wasn't. So it was tough. We then kind of switched gears, as a restoration company. We said, okay, why don't we start doing more large loss rebuilds? Let's go after, large loss fires. Let's join all the, TPA programs. Let's call in insurance agents and adjusters. So that kind of is where I shifted my focus for a number of years, calling on adjusters and actually calling on fire departments. We had created a division of Icon at the time. It was called 859 Board Up, which is it is what it says it is. It's a board up company that was created to compete head to head with 1-800 Board Up.
Mhm.
And we had that in our market.
Okay, so walk me through what that process looks like going into. Are you literally going into the firehouses? Are you calling? What's that sales process?
Literally walking into the firehouses. So it probably had about 250 firehouses in the Cincinnati metro area that I was calling on. And it was just going in, and a lot of time, the way to any man's heart is food, right? So walking in with lunch or treats, donuts, what have you, going into the firehouse and introducing 859 Board Up to them as, hey, we are a victim assistance company. That's how we positioned ourselves. We're a victim assistance company that's going to come out and board up and secure the home after there's been a fire. And we are going to help your displaced homeowner. So we will come out and take your homeowner to a hotel. We'll put them up in the hotel for the first 2 nights. We will give them a care package. It's a bag of basic need items, toiletries, toothpaste, shampoo, the whole works. And then we would give them a binder on what to do after a fire, because most homeowners have never been through a fire. They don't know what to do. They're in a state of panic. This is the worst thing that's probably ever happened to them, and they're in shock and they don't even know what to do next. So, that was kind of the whole marketing pitch to the fire department is, I'm not out here chasing fires. I'm out here providing a service to help these displaced homeowners and get them going in the right direction. And they welcomed that.
I was going to ask, what kind of success did you have going into a firehouse, pitching I don't know, the chief or whoever is responsible for that, talking to the various members of the fire department there? What did that mean to you guys in terms of additional business?
It was amazing, honestly. I don't even know how to put it into words, but we went from a company that we weren't doing large loss fires at all. I mean, we were, our revenue numbers very small. We were a mold and water company, and then we very quickly became into a full service restoration company, doing it, from start to finish, from board up to water mitigation to demo structure and cleaning, and all the way out to the rebuild. And so it definitely changed the trajectory of our business. And the fire departments were very receptive. I got a few, roadblocks in the beginning because they felt like we were just a restoration company and we were chasing fires, right? And I made it very clear to them that I was not going to show up on their fire uninvited, that I was here to provide a service. So the relationship was with the fire department. And if they called and wanted our services, I would come out and help the homeowner. But that after a few experiences, they realized that, I meant what I said. We're on the up and up. We're really helping these people. Of course, at the end of the day, yes, we want the whole fire job. Of course. But you do the right things, you pay it forward, it comes back to you, right? It's all about karma. And so, it came to a point where I had a very good relationship with these fire chiefs that I could text them, and say, hey, I understand there's a fire in your area. Let me know if the homeowners need some help. And, if they did, they would say, come on out. Or they would call me and say, I need you here. So, that department actually grew substantially. And we ran that business for 7 or 8 years. Are you losing track of time? And then we sold it because Rocky decided he wanted to get out of large loss rebuild because what he learned was that our top number went way up here, but our bottom number went way down here. Course, and he realized, it's not about the top number, it's about what we bring home, what the profitability is. and large loss rebuilds just wasn't that profitable.
Let's be honest, the money's in the mitigation, right?
Absolutely.
And Rocky saw that and kind of pivoted. So let's talk a little bit about that pivot, right? So you had spent what, 13 years at Icon Restoration at that point before.
Well, at this point, I mean, just today, I'm
Okay, so you had spent maybe 6 or 7 years at Icon Restoration at this point, and Rocky comes to you guys with this idea to go after commercial water restoration business, but we're going to do it a little differently. So, do you remember the initial conversation that you had with him about this strategy?
Oh, I remember. I remember it very clearly. First of all, he says, "We're going to sell 859 board up and shut that down." And I was like, "Oh, that's my baby." Like, I built that business and this is like my livelihood with, what is this going to do to me? So yes, I remember that vividly. But then he turned around and said, "But we're going to start a plumbing company." And I remember thinking like, "Oh, like I didn't love the whole plumbing industry, right? From my previous experience." So I was like, I don't want to sell plumbing." So, my initial reaction was not favorable. But of course, he's an amazing entrepreneur. He knows what he's doing and he, put the right spin on it, showed me what we were going to be doing. So we cut the fat, right? We got rid of the large loss rebuilds. We stopped doing TPA work and we focused on emergency services. So water mitigation, some fire restoration, but we didn't do the large loss rebuild. We just did the mitigation and the cleaning piece of it. And then, I guess that was the focus then. So let's just focus on what's profitable, right? And what we learned too during this transition or prior to this transition, he knew that commercial work was the place that he wanted the business to go. We were about 80% residential and only doing 20% commercial work. So I'm like, how do we get into the commercial space? So with the few commercial customers that we already had relationships with, we started talking to them. Like, what do you need? What are you missing? And we actually heard from them that where the failure was in the plumbing industry is that nobody's truly emergency response. And so they said, if you could do in plumbing what you do in restoration, you'd have a gold mine. Our business model in restoration is to arrive on site within 59 minutes and we're there and working. We're not sending a spotter. We're not scoping in, estimating it first. We arrive and we get to work. We're, the hero saving the day. And they said they loved that about our restoration company and thought if you did the same thing in plumbing, that would change your fortune. And it truly did.
Okay, so initially he comes to this idea, we're going to start a plumbing company. I believe it was what, 1866 plumber at the time?
It was. So he bought a phone number. He bought 1866 plumber.
Okay.
And, but he very quickly realized he's a big marketing guy and he knows that it's kind of all about the number and the name and it being rememberable. Like how, why is somebody going to call you? And they call you because they remember the number. I remember the name. And we did some market research and found out that 1866 plumber was just it's not catching up. It wasn't memorable. And so, through a lot of marketing efforts, we had a company here locally that actually does some market research for P&G who helped us define, just through market studies and carve out the name One Tom Plumber. And the sticking point was the name is the phone number. That's what made it memorable. One Tom Plumber, the name is the phone number. And so, if you type in, 866 spells Tom.
All right, so don't get me wrong, the name is the phone number, and that's definitely memorable, but that's probably not the most unique thing about the One Tom Plumber branding.
Oh,
Okay.
no.
But we'll get to that in just a second, right? All right. So initially, you're out there, you're going out, and you're going to the restoration, commercial restoration clients that you have, and then the ones that you don't have, and you're offering emergency response under an hour plumbing services there.
Correct.
And you can charge significantly more than you can standard plumbing services there. So it is a profit center in itself.
It is. It is a profit center. Now, we're not necessarily charging during regular business hours. We're not charging any more than probably any other plumbing company. I mean, the One Tom Plumber business model, we believe kind of we're not the cheapest plumber. We don't want to be the most expensive. We kind of price ourselves on the high side of average, if you will. But there's value that comes with that, and that's what we're selling, right? Most people have an idea or an opinion about plumbing. Like plumbing is just a dirty industry. If you ask somebody to describe a plumber, they're probably going to use a few things that you've probably heard, like plumber's cracks. And, they're dirty in the white t-shirt and the dirty jeans. And that's kind of, that's sort of par for the course in the industry. And, we wanted to go to market with something that was completely different, something that people, an individual that walked into your building or your home that you welcomed and didn't feel gross.
No. So we're
Right.
we're we're going to talk about that image and that branding for a second, but you and Rocky decided to use this opportunity that you had now with all of these new commercial clients that were taking advantage of your plumbing services. You used that as kind of a Trojan horse, to get in there and get the real business that you guys were after, right?
100%. I'll tell you because as a marketing person, as a BDR rep, going in and trying to sell restoration to the commercial space is not easy. You're out there, I mean, I'm an independent restoration company in this market. We're relatively small, medium size, right? But we're in there competing with ServPro and Belfour and Paul Davis and all the national brands across the country who have contracts in place already with a lot of these management companies like Cushman and Wakefield and CBRE. So for me to get in there and steal that business, if you would, I really have to be in front of them all the time. I have to be like, what am I offering that's different? What's my differentiator? I've got to build the best relationship. So it's a challenge. And I was making strides. I had commercial work, but my fortune really did change when we started with One Tom Plumber. Because then I had not only did I have another reason to walk in the door, but I had something that I was offering that they needed right now. I mean, I can walk in the door and walk out with a job. You can very rarely do that in restoration.
No, no, I'm guessing, whether it's a restaurant or a medical facility, they have a lot more plumbing needs on a day-to-day and week-to-week basis than they do emergency water damage or restoration needs.
100%.
So you stay top of mind with that commercial client. And honestly, sometimes those plumbing calls end up being restoration calls. And guess who happens to already be there?
Yeah. It truly is magical. And the nice thing with everybody who is part of our franchise network, they are also restoration owners. So we encourage them for them to hire a BDR person to go out and represent and sell both plumbing and restoration. So, I mean, if you can see me, I've got the One Tom Plumber logo on my shirt here on my chest, but I have the restoration logo on the sleeve of my shirt.
Love that.
Right? My business cards are dual branded, my company vehicles dual branded, my marketing materials that I take in are dual branded. So everything that I do screams plumbing and restoration. So I'm selling both companies at the same time. So it's kind of a twofer, for the
And
restoration owner.
And when I think about it, these plumbing companies, they don't go out and hire business development reps traditionally. They're not out there knocking doors, chasing commercial opportunities for the most part. I'm sure there are some growth-minded individuals that are out there doing it, but it's way different than restoration. That market is saturated with business development reps out there knocking doors every single day, trying to build those relationships there. So you guys start One Tom Plumber. You're also still working in Icon, right? And let's talk about the hats that you're currently wearing. So you're currently still in a business development representative role with Icon Property Rescue.
Yeah, and not only Icon, but One Tom Plumber Cincinnati. So we have a franchise location here in Cincinnati, which is right next door to Icon. So I'm out there selling both One Tom Plumber Cincinnati and Icon Property Rescue to my commercial clients
Love that. Love that.
on a daily basis. So that's the everyday job.
Okay. So that's takes up 40, 50 hours of your week. But in addition to doing that, Rocky has you doing some other tasks around One Tom Plumber, helping to grow that enterprise. So let's talk about the way I see it, the two main functions that you're servicing in One Tom Plumber outside of being an awesome business development rep, right? So you wear the hat of VP of franchise sales, right? So these restoration companies that are interested in making that investment, part of it is having a conversation with you so that you can paint the picture of what it's like to go into these commercial restaurants or commercial establishments and sell them emergency plumbing services and then constantly be in front of them and turn those relationships into restoration opportunities.
It is. I mean, that is exactly what I do, and that's why Rocky asked me to help him on this endeavor because it makes perfect sense. I live it every day. I understand what it's like to try to be in restoration and sell restoration. So, I've seen the difference and the change it had in my business portfolio. My book of business just grew enormously when I was able to go in and offer something that they needed, emergency service plumbing. So that's why, I maintain this. First of all, I have a great book of business and great relationships that I don't want to walk away from. But it's very helpful to those restoration owners when I'm talking to them to say, I live this. I know what your BDR reps are going through and I know how to help them. So because of that, I am selling the franchises, but I also do sales training for those franchisees. So, part of our business model is we do require the franchisees to have at least one BDR. So they need boots on the ground. You're not going to grow in the commercial space if you don't have somebody out there knocking on doors and building those relationships. Then you're not going to just get that business from Google, right? It doesn't come.
Trust me, I've tried.
It doesn't work, does it?
It's a little harder to get commercial opportunities through digital marketing. Definitely a lot easier if you've got boots on the ground in that market going out there and
Boots
soliciting.
on the ground is the key. It is the key. And so I also will train those individuals. So when a restoration company comes to us, comes on board, buys a one-time plumber franchise, I do the training. Well, not just me, but me and my team do the training for those business development reps. So they will literally come here to Cincinnati for 3 days. And each day we will put them in a car with a different salesperson and we show them what it's like. Like that we call it the power of the plunger. And I'm not kidding you, this is like the golden ticket. It is like pulling the sword out of the stone. Like,
Okay.
you walk in with a pink plunger, people look at you like you're insane. I mean, I'll give you that. They're like, "Why are you walking around with a pink plunger? What's up with the pink plunger?" But you know what it does? It breaks the ice and it generates questions and conversation and it opens the door. Well, so you have to take a pink plunger in everywhere. But I literally train them on how to walk in the door with a pink plunger, how to start talking about their service, like their plumbing needs and how we're an emergency service plumbing company. And I build the relationship first on the plumbing side before bringing the restoration into it.
Okay. So, a lot of our audience had an opportunity to listen to Rocky and I's interview, find out a little bit more about the one Tom Plumber opportunity. I think if it's a good fit based on Rocky's criteria, I think they should. I definitely want to encourage them to reach out to you guys and find out more about the franchise opportunity. I do want to give our audience that unfortunately, for whatever reason, it's just not a good fit for one Tom Plumber, but does want to get more commercial business. I want to peel back the layers from the insight that you have for doing this for the last 13 plus years, right? So if I'm a restoration company and I'm going out and I'm looking to hire a business development rep, what are the key characteristics that I should be looking for in the right person that's going to go out, do the work, create the relationships, and generate the revenue, the commercial revenue for my business?
So there's a couple of things. I mean, first off, generally, you're going to want somebody that has some type of sales experience already. There's a rejection factor that's in there, and you've got to hire an individual that's not afraid of rejection. So if they've done sales in the past, they hopefully are over that hump, right? But more than anything, I know restoration owners, I say they're all like Rocky. They're all very busy. Most of them have ADD. Sorry guys. But they don't have the time to manage and lead a salesperson. So what you really need is an individual that is just driven and self-motivated. So look for somebody who's already been doing sales, but commissioned based sales. Because that's the key. If you hire somebody and you just put them on a salary, they get comfortable, right? And you don't work that hard because it doesn't matter how hard you work, you're gonna make the same amount of money, right?
I've
Oh,
hired salespeople in the past, and I would agree with you. The best ones are the ones that are hungry and monetarily motivated, right?
yeah.
All right. So, couple things for the audience. When you're going out and you're looking to hire a business development rep for your restoration company, make sure you go after somebody that has some sales experience. And I think it's important what you said. They've got to have thick skin. So it probably shouldn't be someone that only is sold over the phone or only takes walk-ups at a car dealership, right? You need somebody that's got experience going out door to door, business to business and soliciting. I don't care whether it's telecom services, security cameras, whatever it is. They just have to have experience doing that in that environment. Because man, that's a whole different level of rejection that people.
It really is. I mean, it's difficult, and I'll tell you, I mean, I don't do it today, or I'm not nervous today, but for many years, you get the butterflies in the stomach every time you're about to walk into a business, because what is that reaction going to be? And you really just have to overcome that, and honestly, I think what changed it for me was this pink plunger, because it's funny and it's unique and you can make jokes with it, that it breaks down that fear that the salesperson has of walking in and what that response is gonna be. So, it's a great tool for that, and so you do need to have the thick skin, you can't be afraid of being rejected, um, but the other thing is that people need to keep in mind is you're not out there selling copiers. You're not selling something that somebody doesn't need. You're you're not selling anything, to be honest. What you're selling yourself. You're selling a relationship because they just want a reliable, responsive company to help them in their time of need. And that's what you're offering. You're not trying to get them to sign a contract on the dotted line for something they don't need.
Yeah.
It's a service you're providing.
Yeah. Another thing you mentioned that I think is really important for the audience to understand is as a restoration business owner, you probably are wearing a bunch of different hats. And the last thing that you have time to do is actually micromanage a salesperson that's going to be spending the majority of their time out in the field. So you have to find that person that is self-motivated, that's going to do the work, knock the doors, spend do the time out in the field, right? Not sit at home on their couch and pretend they went out there and prospect that afternoon there. So,
Exactly.
um, any, I won't say experience, but do you traditionally see that because I'm sure you see tons of business development reps that your franchisees are bringing in on a regular basis there. Can you see a prospect and say, hey, they're going to be a rock star, or see somebody and say, I think they're going to struggle?
I totally can. And I tell the stores all the time, I'm like, if you're interviewing somebody and you're not sure about them, send them in for a day, a ride along day. I'll be able to tell you by the end of the day. Because if they're shadowing with me and they're going out with me and we walk in the door and I start conversation and they just stand there like a wallflower and they don't engage, they're not going to make it. So you definitely have to have somebody that's got a very outgoing personality and willing to engage with a perfect stranger.
I like that. So from your days back at Icon to what you're doing now with Icon and One Tom Plumber, are there specific commercial accounts, specific business types that are a little bit more receptive to whether it's prospecting as a restoration company or prospecting as a plumbing company looking for those commercial relationships?
There is, the what we always say is the lowest hanging fruit at One Tom Plumber is multifamily housing, so apartments. Because, in any type of commercial property management sector or any business, they usually have maintenance people on staff, right? There's somebody that's going to handle the basic problems, and a tenant calls and says the toilet's clogged, the maintenance guy comes and tries to fix it, right? But, their capabilities are limited on what they can do.
They're probably not a master plumber.
They're not a master plumber, no, and their skill set is, it's limited, and they don't have all the tools that they have, like, you don't need to be a master plumber to run a jetter to clear a line, but they don't have jetters, like, that's too expensive of a piece of equipment for them to have. So they're always going to have to call in reinforcements, so they need plumbing companies, they need HVAC companies, they need electricians, right? They need the trades. So we have found multifamily housing is just a cash cow because, they have to keep their tenants happy, right? They can't have a tenant that doesn't have a running sink or a clogged toilet or whatever. They
Absolutely not.
solve that problem. And so they'll spend the money all day long on getting service out there for us to take care of that. Um, and then, of course, you get a toilet overflow on the third floor or what have you that bubbles down, obviously creates an opportunity for restoration.
100%. Now, outside of multi-family properties, are there any other commercial accounts that you would say, hey, this is also somebody that's going to be fairly receptive to this kind of
Yeah, I mean,
relationship?
honestly, there's so many. Like restaurants are fantastic. We get restaurant work on the regular because, they're producing so much grease and they're pushing everything down their floor drains. They have drain issues all the time. So, we have a lot of work where it's repeat work, like preventative maintenance work that you can get with restaurants. But other than that, though, I mean, anything's an opportunity, but we do a lot of work with large commercial property management companies like real estate companies, Cushman and Wakefield, CBRE, Colliers International, all of those companies, which once you get your foot in the door there, you'll get the plumbing and the restoration a little bit. And like I said, it's just easier to get your foot in the door with plumbing. Um, Medical office buildings is a fantastic sector for both plumbing and restoration. Not the hospital, but the medical office building, because that's your doctor's offices and your urgent cares and different things like that, where they have to have a clean, sterile environment. They can't have a toilet overflow and not take care of it the right way, right? So they're going to call the plumber to fix the issue, but they're going to call in the restoration to clean it up properly. So that's a really good vertical.
All right, so I like the medical facility. Didn't really think about that one. The restaurant one made a lot of sense to me. But when I think about restaurants, are you going after like big chains? Or are you going after like your mom and pop Italian restaurant down the street?
I would say everything, but more so the big chains. I mean, yes, the mom and pop's going to send you business, but I'm kind of on the believer that I fish where the fish are, right? Like I want the big fish. And I don't wanna spend all day chasing, mom and pop, restaurants that I'm just getting that little bit of work from. I'd rather make the relationship with the whole company, right? So, give me all the Outback Steakhouses in this area. Give me all the Texas Roadhouse. Give me all the, Wingstops. I want something that I'm gonna get multiple opportunities from.
Okay. But if you're a restoration company, not a plumbing company, you're a restoration company, you want to make sure that as a restoration company, you have the bandwidth to, if you have multiple issues, you've got the bandwidth to be able to dispatch technicians and be able to actually take care of that emergency work.
For sure. Now, you're probably not gonna get that though on from restaurants. I mean, if you think about a restaurant, they're built to flood, they're mostly like big buildings. So you're not gonna get a whole lot of restoration work out of a restaurant unless they have a fire,
Okay.
truly. So the work is plumbing work from restaurants.
So but from a bandwidth standpoint, you only get one time, right, to mess up, right? If you don't have the manpower, if you can't get somebody on site, they're going to call the next company on their preferred vendor list, and you might miss out not just on that opportunity, but on future opportunities.
100%. And that's where you're going to see that become a bigger problem, if you will, would be in those large commercial real estate companies like Cushman's and the CBREs. They don't they typically won't deal with that smaller independent restoration company because of that. They have one opportunity, if they have a 19-story building and 6 floors are flooded, they can't bring in a small restoration company to mitigate that if they don't have the bandwidth, they don't have the staff and the equipment to handle it. So that's where, when we're vetting restoration companies to come into this franchise model and buy a one-time plumber, we want to make sure that the restoration company is set up for that they've got enough trucks, they have enough technicians, they have enough equipment to handle that because you do only get that one chance, and if you burn it, that sucks.
100%. All right. So a little bit more for our restoration owners that are not in a position to go out and get a one-time plumber franchise at this time, but they do want to chase some commercial business like you were doing or continue to do for Icon. We talked about hiring the right business development rep. So we want somebody with experience, with sales experience, doing door to door, doing B2B. You want somebody that's self-motivated and disciplined, that's actually going to do the work, right? Are there any other things that a restoration company owners should look out for in terms of making that business development rep hire?
That is a really great question. I don't know. You stumped me on that one. I'm trying to be
L-
I
Let,
feel like I hit the main points, to be honest.
let's frame it a different way, right? So a restoration company goes out there, they hire somebody, they're young, they're hungry, they've got business to business sales experience, but they notice, hey, it's been 30 days, it's been 60 days, and I'm not necessarily expecting a bunch of jobs coming in, but I'm expecting at least conversations and relationships to be established. What are the KPIs that that restoration company should be looking for in terms of that business development rep? Because you can't necessarily, it's not the business development rep's job to create the restoration need. It's just a relationship, right?
Absolutely. So I think KPIs and measuring them, you have to do it based on activity level. Because as you said, you cannot control when that next water loss is going to be in that building. So you could be calling on a Cushman and Wakefield or whatever client, multiple times for months on end. It could be 6 months, 12 months, 18 months before they ever send you a restoration job. So it is really hard for a business owner to say, gosh, is my BDR, doing any good? Like they haven't brought in any work, but they say they've got all these relationships. And even as the rep, it's hard to know that whether or not you really do have that relationship because, um, the customer tells you, yeah, I'm going to send you my next job, but you haven't gotten it. So it is a really difficult thing to gauge. So the business owner needs to really measure KPIs on activity level. How many stops have they made today? How many times have they gone back to the same customer? Um, what is the relationship? So they should make sure the BDR rep has a CRM that they're using. They should be logging their activity on a regular basis. So they log into, we use HubSpot. So you log into HubSpot, you put in your business contact name and whatever, and then you put in an activity of what was the stop about? I stopped into Cushman today. This was in a conversation with this property manager. This is what's going on. And if you use that CRM, and which they should on a regular basis, then the business owner has something to go back and look at and judge that rep to say, are they doing what they need to be doing? How many contacts have they made? How many times have they gone back? What has the relationship been? I mean, did they just stop by and drop off a notepad and walk away? Or did they actually have a conversation with a decision maker?
Okay. I like that. So if you're listening and you're thinking about going out there and investing in a business development rep, you should find somebody that is hungry, somebody that has B2B experience in the business to or actually going out in the field, experience listing business to business. And then you should monitor their activity. Don't look for the result necessarily, especially over the first 6 to 12 months, because they just can't control that. Okay. So let's talk about the restoration company that's on the fence about adding plumbing because they still can't wrap their mind around adding plumbing as a way to add more commercial opportunities. I know you guys are on knocking on the door on 100 franchises right now, right?
Right.
All right. So I'm sure you have probably talked to a large majority of these new franchisees, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Any big success stories that you can think of over the last couple of years that you want to share about a restoration company that took the opportunity with One Tom Plumber, plugged in this framework, and is using it to really grow their commercial restoration business?
Yeah, the one that comes to mind is probably our fastest growing franchise right now. His name is John Gabriel. He's out of Des Moines, Iowa, and he owns a 911 restoration business out of there. And, I think I don't know. I don't know if I should even share what his revenue numbers were, right? He was doing all right, right? But he was very much residential focused and, trying to figure out how to get into that commercial space. And in a very similar situation, I think he heard a podcast or something and, inquired, like, tell me more. And so he bought into the One Tom Plumber franchise model and he has just knocked it out of the park. I mean, he's been our fastest growing, top performing franchisee. But not only has he brought in all of this revenue for him on a completely different revenue stream, right? Like plumbing revenue, but it has changed his trajectory. I don't know the exact percentages. You'd have to reach out to him to be sure, like how much it's changed his restoration business. But I know he's doing way more commercial work now than he ever did before. Like, I don't know that he was doing any before. So it definitely it's your gateway. I mean, it's the door kicker, it's the way to transition your business. And I'm not saying you have to walk away from, residential work, but, it's all great.
No,
Let's
scale.
add to it.
Do it all.
Right. Do it all.
All right. So you've been in the restoration industry now for, let's say, 13 years now. What do you think's next for the restoration industry? Because we have a lot of like private equity groups coming in and
Mhm.
rolling up restoration businesses. The emergence of AI. I don't know from a marketing standpoint. I understand that how that's going to impact the business, but from a day-to-day fulfillment standpoint, I think we're a little far away from Elon's robots doing mitigation or plumbing for that matter.
Yep. So
But what do you see as big changes happening in the restoration and the plumbing and home service space over the next 5 to 10 years?
I think they're all doing a similar model where they're adding service lines and becoming a one-stop shop for the customer. I think that is just where everybody's headed. I mean, you can see it already. You know that, let's say Roto-Rooter is a plumbing company that got into the restoration space. And so it is happening everywhere. I'm sure I haven't seen a lot of it yet, but I'm sure you're going to start seeing other restoration companies adding different plumbing companies to their business line because it's something that it gives you another tool in your belt, right? Another reason to walk in the door, another service opportunity, another profit center. It makes sense. So that's what I think is going to happen in the industry as a whole. They're going to start adding HVAC, plumbing, electrical, everything, and the restoration space is going to become one-stop shop.
Yeah, you heard it from Leah, guys. Restoration is a great industry to be in. Great opportunity for you to create a business, service your community, and grow wealth for you and your family, right? However, you can't be static, right? You can't just stay doing the same things that you've been doing for the last 5, 10, 15 years, or you're going to get eaten up by these new restoration companies that are adding these additional services. So, if you're interested in potentially adding plumbing as a service that not only brings in revenue, but also opens the door for you to get more commercial opportunities for your restoration business, who do you think they should reach out to, Leah?
Me? Why Palm Plumber? The name is the number? Uh, Absolutely. No, I'd be more than happy to field any of those phone calls, questions. Please direct them to me. Yeah.
I think you're definitely going to have some interested parties, Leah. We'll make sure we drop Leah's contact information in the show notes. No, I'm not giving you her cell phone number. You can email her. You can reach out to her on LinkedIn. You guys stay away. All right.
I'm giving myself my phone number, but for business, a question. So
All right. Leah, any last thoughts for that restoration company? Let's do twofold, right? Any more thoughts for that restoration company that's looking to hire their first business development rep? Any more ideas you have to make sure that that hire is a good one, or if it's not, allow them to quickly pivot and find the right person for that role?
yeah, one of the things that we do that I highly recommend is a working interview. We do this for almost every position that we hire now at One Tom Plumber is a working interview. So we bring in some candidates that we feel like are pot- potentially a good fit because we've already done some vetting and had some interviews with them. And two things happen. First of all, they go around and talk to every person in our company, right? Have an introduction with our production lead, our estimator, our front desk, our dispatcher. You know what I mean? Like have them interact with every person and see what that reaction is. Ask all of the people at the end of the day, what did you think of that individual? Do you see them as a good fit for our culture? I think that's really important. But two, bring them in and put them to work, literally put them to work. So have them come in and say, all right, I want to see what you're going to go after. So let's create a target list for me and put together your 30-second elevator pitch and give them some tasks to do and see if they can rise to the occasion because there's nothing better than putting somebody on the spot like you got to do it now, and we pay them for that. You pay them to spend the entire day with you, so they're going to get money at the end of the day. Put your best foot forward because this is your interview. Is it going to be you or somebody else?
I like that a lot. Now, some of our audience, they don't own a restoration company yet. Maybe they're a business development rep that's currently working in a restoration company. So give that business development rep some insight. What can they do differently tomorrow or next week or next month that'll help them go from what was it, a little shy of $1 million a year that you were generating in revenue? Now it's closer to $3 million a year. There are entire restoration companies with teams, sales departments that don't generate $3 million worth of new business. So my hat's off to you. You are an
Yeah.
absolute rock star. But for the guy that's not putting up those numbers, not putting that kind of revenue on the board, what advice would you give to that business development rep so that they can go in and secure more of those relationships?
They need to get creative and think outside the box, and I know that's so cliche and everybody says that, but, you can't be the same as everybody else and just walking in with a business card and a notepad, like, what does that do for you? Get creative. Do a lunch and learn event. Invite them to your space. We did one just last week where we invited a bunch of different property managers, maintenance technicians, anybody, basically, admins, whoever, inside different commercial companies. They came to Icon and we did a lunch and learn and we walked them through what it looks like to do water mitigation and mold remediation and set expectations and showed them equipment, educated them. And I facilitated that. I didn't hold the class, if you will, but I'm like, hey, this is what I need to do. So then I put together a flyer and I went out to all of the different businesses and property managers. And I said, hey, we're going to host a lunch and learn. We're going to provide free lunch and an educational opportunity, bring you to our office, give you a tour. And they're very receptive to that. They want to get out. They think that's great. They get free lunch.
Everybody loves a free lunch.
Absolutely. And in that day, we had 22 people last week and we got 2 mold jobs that day. So love that. Wasn't expecting.
Pays for itself. Coverage of pizza.
Oh, just get creative like that. I mean, we do lots of silly things. We'll buy a cooler. Like we like to bring the Yeti cooler that's on wheels and fill it with a bunch of just snacks and drinks and fruit, sometimes maybe little bottles of alcohol. That and be in there, right? And like literally take that around and visit a bunch of different businesses and just walk in and say, "Hey, just thought you might like a snack. Open up your cooler. Feel free to take what you want. If you drop your business card in, we're going to raffle this off at the end of the summer. So you want to win this? Give us your contact
I
info."
love that. And that is absolute gold for our audience. So I don't care if you're a restoration company looking to hire your first business development rep, if you're a business development rep looking to scale to doing 7 figures in revenue for your restoration company, or the third option, a restoration company that's considering adding one Tom plumber. Leah, you've done a great job in providing value to our audience. So I really appreciate you jumping on here today.
Yeah, appreciate you having me. Thanks for.
For our audience that stick around, we really appreciate you guys. Make sure that you follow us on social, like our content, subscribe, and if you so choose, maybe leave a nice 5-star review. Thanks to our friend Leah, who just gave us some great knowledge there. If you're interested in finding out more about adding one Tom plumber to your successful restoration company as a way for you to get more commercial opportunities, we're going to put Leah's contact information in the show notes so you can reach out to her directly. She wears a number of hats, and one of those is VP of Franchise Sales for One Tom Plumber. So, Leah, again, thank you for providing so much value to the audience.
You are welcome. Pleasure was mine. I had a great time today. Thank you, Clinton.
Awesome. Thanks again, folks, for sticking around. As I always say, I want all of my restoration folks to stay busy, stay dry, and most importantly, stay profitable out there. So, all right. Thanks, Leah. We'll see you guys again next week with another episode of the Restoration Pros Unplugged. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Restoration Pros Unplugged podcast. If you like what you heard today, be sure to subscribe, share, and also leave us a 5-star review. We'll be back with more interviews and discussions with restoration industry leaders really soon. In the meantime, if you're a restoration company looking to add more high-value water jobs, you can reach me and my team at waterrestorationmarketing.net. Again, that's waterrestorationmarketing.net. I look forward to hearing from you soon.